Hello friends, today I am going to reveal some true facts of Indian polity. But first of all, I request you to please share and subscribe my channel for getting my informative true facts videos uninterrupted. Now, Indian polity. Introduction. Basic structure of the political system. It establishes the main organs of the state, the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. In a federal polity, the constitution delineates, delimits and distributes the power between the organs of a state at union level and those at the levels of the states. Living organisms or functioning institutions. Now, Constitution of India. Constitution of India, adopted by the Constituent Assembly on 26 November 1949, came into full operation from 26 January 1950. Constitution of India, originally adopted with 22 parts, 395 articles and 8 schedules. It is amended time to time. Constitution of India amended time to time. A number of new articles and new parts have been added in Constitution of India. Several articles or even full parts have been repealed by constitutional amendments. Now, sources of the Constitution, it is important. Sources of the Constitution, diverse and many sources are there. Indigenous sources and foreign sources are there. Indigenous sources, evolved through various representative, responsible governmental institutions, a small doses of constitutional reforms. Sources can be tracked back to the beginning of the East India Company and the British rule. Reference to village panchayat under the active principle was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. Now, indigenous sources, evolved through various representative, responsible governmental institutions, a small doses of constitutional reforms. Sources can be tracked back to the beginning of the East India Company and the British rule. Reference to village panchayat under the active principles was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. Indigenous sources, demand for some of the fundamental rights was made as early as in 1918 at the Bombay session of the Indian National Congress. The Commonwealth of India Bill in 1925 embodied a specific declaration of rights including equality before law, freedom of speech, assembly and religion, etc. The Karachi Congress resolution of 1931 contained a special reference for fundamental rights and fundamental duties as well. Several social and economic rights mentioned in 1931 resolution found expressions in the active principles. A parliamentary system, safeguards for minorities and a federal polity have had sources in the 1928 Nehru Committee report. The Madras session of the Congress in 1927 reiterated the demand for fundamental rights. 10 of the 19 fundamental rights in the Nehru Committee report appeared substantially unchanged in the Constitution. It is important. 10 of the 19 fundamental rights in the Nehru Committee report appeared substantially unchanged in the Constitution. 75% of the Constitution is a reproduction of the Government of India Act 1935. It is important. 75% of the Constitution is a reproduction of the Government of India Act 1935. Basic structure of polity, provisions regulating union-state relations and declaration of emergency. Foreign sources, directive principles from Irish Constitution, directive principles from Irish Constitution, parliamentary system with a ministerial responsibility from the British. Provisions backing the President, the executive head of the state and the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces were from the US model. Vice President, the ex-officio chairman of the Council of States from the US Bill of Rights inspired our fundamental rights. The Canadian Constitution influenced our federal structure and provisions related to union-state relations. The concurrent list is 7 schedule model on the Australian Constitution. The concurrent list is 7 schedule model on the Australian Constitution. The German rich influenced the emergency provisions. The rights and privileges have influence of the British Constitution. Constitutional history of India. Constitutional government in ancient India. Concept of democracy, representative institutions, limitations on the arbitrary power of the rulers, and the rule of law were not enhanced to India. Constitutional landmarks in modern India. The Charter Act 1669. For the first time, the company acquired the authority to rule over a territory and its people. Regulating Act of 1773. Regulating Act 1773 British Parliament's control over the company started with the charter. British Parliament's control over the company started with this charter. Pitt's India Act 1784, it is important. Pitt's India Act 1784. For political matters, a board of control of 6 members was appointed. Charter Act of 1813. The Act deprived the company of the monopoly of trade in India. Charter Act of 1833. The Act differentiated the law-making meetings of the Governor General in Council from its executive meetings. The Indian Council Act of 1909. Indian Council Act 1909. This Act contained many of the reform proposals of Minto model reforms. Principles of communal representation was introduced for the first time. The Government of India Act 1919, based on the Montego-Chelmsford reports, Indian legislative councils were replaced by the bicameral legislature. Diarchy was introduced in 8 major provinces. Diarchy introduced in 8 major provinces. The Act of 1858, constitutional landmark of modern India. The Act of 1858. The Act finally becomes the Act for the good government of India in 1858. Indian Council Act 1861. Indian Council Act 1861. For the first time, Indians were associated with the work of legislation. The Indian Council Act of 1892. The entry of the elected members marked the beginning of the new era in the life of the Council. Constitutional landmark in modern India. Wavell Plan and Simla Conference. The interim council was to be Indianized with the inclusion of Indian political leaders. The Viceroy, Lord Wavell, convened the conference of Indian leaders at Simla. Cabinet mission rejected the League demand for a separate sovereign state of Pakistan. Also rejected the Congress scheme of a loose federation. The Simon Commission 1927. The constitutional landmarks in modern India. The Simon Commission 1927 made a promise to set up a commission to inquire into the working of the Act 1919. Simon Commission 1927 made a promise to set up a commission to inquire into the working of the Act 1919. The Government of India Act 1935, in which says a federation of all India, separated Burma from India, and 2 new provinces of Odisha and Sindh were created. The Government of India Act 1935 separated Burma from India, and 2 new provinces of Odisha and Sindh were created. The Cripps Mission proposed dominion status and the right of Indians to frame a constitution. Gandhiji condemned the proposal as a post-dated check. Constitutional landmark in modern India. Mountbatten Plan prepared a plan for the partition. Mountbatten Plan prepared a plan for the partition. Indian Independence Act 1947 indicated the territorial divisions of India into India and Pakistan. Pakistan was to comprise East Bengal, West Punjab, Sindh and the Sylhet district of Assam. Making of the Constitution. Formation of the Constituent Assembly. The first definite reference to a Constituent Assembly for India was made by Mahatma Gandhi in 1922. Nehru Report was the first attempt by the Indians to frame a constitution for their country. Demand of a Constituent Assembly was for the first time considered by the British government in the August offer of 1940. Framing of the Constitution. The Constituent Assembly duly opened first sitting on the appointment day, Monday the 9th December 1946. It is important. The Constituent Assembly duly opened first sitting on the appointment day, Monday the 9th December 1946. The historic objectives resolution was moved in the Constituent Assembly by Nehru on 13 December 1946. Framing of the Constitution. The Constituent Assembly on 29 August 1947 appointed the drafting committee with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as the chairman. The Constitution was finally signed by the members of the Constituent Assembly on 24th January 1950. It took 2 years, 11 months and 17 days to frame the Constitution. It took 2 years, 11 months and 17 days to frame the Constitution. Criticity of the draft Constitution not being original. It is not being original. Now in my next video, I will reveal 2 facts of some more interesting some topics. Thanks.